The World Marathon Majors. As of this video start, we've run 6 of the 7 with Sydney to come
this August.
So we will have done all 7. And in this video, we're just going to simply give you all of the ways that you can use to enter any of the marathon majors.
And we're going to rank those marathon majors from the easiest to get into, in our opinion, and using our research, down to the hardest.
All of the other information we think is relevant, we'll put up on the screen. So let's just start. Okay, we're going to start with the easiest that we think to get in, which is, of course,
Chicago.
We love Chicago and we're going back this year. Now, Chicago, in terms of lottery or ballot, whatever you want to call it, the odds are better than most. Now, I'm not going to say that they're good because it is still a World Marathon Major, but they're certainly some of the better odds in terms of the 7 that we're going to be talking about. So you stand a much better chance than, say, for example, Tokyo or London.
Yeah, and there is a legacy program as well. So there's 3 particular races that if you run in Chicago, you can get guaranteed entry into the marathon. So that's fantastic if you live in the area or nearby. There's also a time qualification route for Chicago, which is reasonable and it's guaranteed entry. They don't have a cut down and it applies to international runners. So that's how we've got in both times we've entered Chicago.
Gotta love a race with no cut down. If you're under the time, you're in. Also, as with all of these majors, the criteria and the amount that you have to raise is different per majors, but there is a charity entry. And there is also, with all of these marathon majors, a tour operator. You may have seen in our previous videos, we've been to races with Sports Tours International, but there is a whole raft, depending on the country that you come from, that do this. And that is a great way of guaranteeing not just your race entry, but your accommodation as well. So Chicago, easiest.
Next up is Berlin. It's reasonable to get into, and there are time qualifiers for Berlin as well. They're a little bit more challenging than the Chicago times, but again, if you run them, you're guaranteed entry.
Big fan of that.
The lottery or ballot is probably the most favourable to get into, so it's worth entering in that route and hoping you might get lucky with Berlin.
And again, I will say it, there is a charity entry option and there is tour operators that work at all of these. Generally, the rule is that if you are within that country, as in if you are German, the tour operators don't often offer places to you. And I know the same can be said if you are American wanting to run an American race, you can't use those tour operators because it's more to do with the international runners that need the hotels as well. Not that people wouldn't travel from all around the country, but that tends to be how it's all set up.
Yeah.
But big down point of Berlin?
We didn't get a t-shirt.
You do not get given, you have to buy a t-shirt. Come on, Berlin.
And all you got after the marathon was an apple.
And a non-alcoholic beer.
Which was nice.
It was all right. Okay, moving on to Sydney, and while I appreciate we haven't actually run Sydney yet, but we're in, so we can still talk about the process that we used to get entry. We didn't use the lottery or ballot, although the odds, I believe, are actually the best of all of the marathon majors at the moment, but I expect that will change over the years because this is only its 2nd year of being a marathon major.
Yeah, still fairly early days. We got in through the high performance program, which is essentially the time qualifier. There is a cut down. They take the fastest finishers, I think 3,000 men and 3,000 women this year within each age category. You had to meet the time qualification and then they took the fastest from each section until they'd made the numbers.
Now that is also going to get more and more competitive as the years go on, and we know that, so perhaps you want to look at something like charity entry. I think the charity entry option, there are charities that work with international runners and there are charities that work with runners that are already inside Australia, and from having a quick look around at how much you would need to raise, it's actually, some of the charities is pretty kind. You know, London we'll talk about later, but some of those charities pretty punchy. We found charities that are still open now if you wanted to apply for Sydney. Potentially it looks like the cost being about 3,600 Aussie dollars, which is around £1,800, which is definitely cheaper than a lot of the London charities.
And tour operators are really excited to have their Sydney packages up and running now, and they sound amazing. Think boat tours, think opera house, seeing the sights of Sydney with a group of other runners. could be a good way to enjoy it. Okay, we're halfway. We're getting towards the punchier end, the more difficult majors to get into. And next up is New York City.
Which we love.
We love New York. We're going back this year. It's a tough one to get into though. But if you are local to New York and you're a member of the New York Roadrunners, you could massively increase your chances. And they have a 9+1 program where if you run 9 of the New York Roadrunners events and volunteer at one, you get guaranteed entry to the New York Marathon, which is pretty amazing and really good if you live in that area.
Okay, let's talk time qualifiers. So New York kind of works a little bit like Berlin and Chicago, that if you run in a New York Roadrunners event and you are a member of New York Roadrunners, then if you hit the time qualifier, you are in automatically. But if you run the qualifying time and it's not a New York Roadrunner event, you are subject to a cut down. So a little bit like Boston, a little bit like Sydney, they have a cut down. New York this year was 25 minutes just because of the sheer number of people that went through the 9+1 program. So the chances are pretty difficult.
Obviously, if you haven't got the time qualifier, you can apply in the ballot and the odds are slim, but it's one of the biggest marathons in the world, so there is a chance there. Or you could even bid for a charity place as well.
And finally, of course, tour company. Again, we know Sports Tours International does an absolute, we're not sponsored by them, by the way, for this video, but we have gone with them before, so we're very well aware of what they do, and they hire out a really special place in New York. It's well known and renowned for being one hell of an after party. So they look after you, any tour company will, but that is a good way in if you're not already in America, I guess. So let's talk Tokyo, because there are some really good ways of getting into Tokyo and some are really difficult. And the lottery, the chances are a little bit better than London Marathon. For an example, you probably have less than a 10% chance of getting in, which is actually way higher than London.
The time qualification route is so tough for Tokyo. I think they have a few thousand places for Japanese runners, but only 25 men and 25 women internationally. So for a man, you've got to be running in the low 220s, and it is a fastest first getting the place, so it's super tough.
Yeah, I think our friend Nick Bester just got in this year and he's like a 2:19 marathoner.
Yeah.
So that is, I mean, it's not going to happen for the majority of us, let's just say that.
So the other routes available are tour operators, which is what we did when we went to Tokyo.
But one way I would suggest about getting into Tokyo that we didn't use but we would have done was the charity entry. Now, it is a little bit weird because you don't necessarily raise money for a charity. You can just donate your money to a charity to guarantee entry. And for some of them, the cost was around £1,500 to guarantee your spot in the marathon. So if you're desperate to get to Tokyo, that's actually not too bad. I know people do then raise the money back, but you can just donate the money yourself and it's a way in, whereas it's probably double that for London Marathon as an example.
Yeah, it's actually considered the easiest way to get a spot in Tokyo. So if you're interested, check out that charity route.
Oh, this one is so hard to get into, but we love it so much. London Marathon, you have our hearts, but I wish it was easier to get in. We had how many? Nearly 1.4 million people applied for the London Marathon this year. There'll be about 60,000 runners, potentially 120,000 if they double the days. Even so, when you take away like charity entry, when you take away all of the sponsors entry, everything like that, it's a slim chance.
Yeah, if you get in on the ballot, you really have won the lottery.
Yeah.
For the time qualifiers, it is more favourable if you live in the UK and are a resident, so they have a good for age time qualification for UK runners. There is also a championship entry, which is quite a high bar to achieve. One time for men, one time for women. If you get under it and you're a member of a UK athletics club, you can apply.
But of course, you probably realise one of the best ways into London Marathon is charity. There are a lot of charity spaces allocated to runners. It is the biggest one-day charity raising running event, I think, in the world by a long, long way. I really believe that it's pretty accessible if you want a space. There are many spaces with many charities. You just gotta get in early.
And if you're an international runner, then you could look up tour company options to travel to London, stay with a group, get a really good program for your stay, and enjoy that wonderful city and amazing marathon.
But yeah, no getting away from it. It is very hard to get into, but not as hard as the most difficult major marathon to get into, and that is Boston. Mary's t-shirt.
I'm actually struggling in this long sleeve.
It is pretty warm in this room. There is no ballot for Boston.
Yeah, you have to run a time qualification to apply. And even when you apply with the time qualification, you might not get in. So they do have a cut down. It varies year on year. They say about a 7 or 8 minute buffer should be enough, but you never quite know.
Obviously, that means it favours the faster end of runners, but can runners that aren't fast enough, that don't have a BQ, can they run Boston? Well, yeah, they can, because there are other options, like there are charities, where you can raise money for charities. I'm gonna be honest, we've looked at how much you would have to raise. It's pretty on the punchy end, isn't it, in terms of what you'd have to raise?
Yeah, take into account that Boston is a smaller race than the likes of London and New York, and they've got such a huge amount of fast runner places. The rest of the spaces are limited, so you've got to really put your work in to get them. And it also means places with tour operators are fewer and far between.
Which means that you don't just get to sign up with a tour operator and go to Boston. In all likelihood, you will have probably had to have been on at least one, if not a couple of trips with that tour operator first and built up some loyalty before you get a Boston place. Now, there is another way that if it is your 6th major, Abbott's do a small lottery where you get a chance to run Boston through a lottery process via Abbott's, because they're in charge of the world's marathon majors. I applied to do Tokyo in that way. Didn't get in, but I applied.
Yeah. The more majors you've done, if you're registered with Abbott World Marathon Majors, you do get an extra draw into those races the more stars you've accumulated.
This was a quick tour around how you get in the races. I hope you liked it. If you did, subscribe. We've got Sydney, we've got Chicago, we've got New York coming up. We would hope to see you there.
And if you like this video, then you're definitely going to like this one, where we give you 10 of the best non-marathon majors that you could run as well.
And I'll chuck in Mary's Tokyo Marathon, where she ran 3:00:02 seconds, because it's an absolutely banging video. Thanks for watching.
We'll see you on Sunday.